Hello? Hi, this is Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dog, and this is the Dawg Pound. Anybody there? Hello? Hey, my good friend Max Zanan.
Hey, Jim.
Hey,
how
man,
are
you
you?
caused a stir on LinkedIn this week, did you not?
Listen,
Who's surprised by that?
People should be able to take it, like men.
And
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and reference Betty White there, but if I'm not going to say it.
mischievous Alpha Dawg's Posse.
You know what I'm saying, April.
I got you.
From the Horn Automotive Group, one of the most brilliant women in the car business. I've got them all here. April Simmons.
Hey, good afternoon, morning, afternoon, wherever you may be.
Okay, you're out there in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, it's still morning here. So morning to all my West Coasters and afternoon to everybody else.
Okay, and while we're talking about brilliant women, the queen of BDC, I'm talking about a woman who works far too hard, my friend Bobbie Herron.
I don't know. I didn't work far too hard this weekend. I celebrated with clients this weekend for an event, which was amazing.
Okay, I'll accept that. And a woman who's struggling with her new move-in, she needs to be frozen at the moment, Jennifer Briggs. Hi, Jennifer.
Am I moving?
You are moving.
A little bit.
We're going to cue
you're
card it for
moving just
Jennifer.
a little bit, Jennifer. Jennifer's got a little internet problem today, and this is going to be a really unusual Dawg Pound show. All my projected guests are on vacation. Nobody was available. So I said, hey, let's go back to the original mischievous Alpha Dawg posse. Let's go back to the core troublemakers in this group. And of all the troublemakers, I stumbled on Max Zanan. I was on LinkedIn this week, and tell me about the post. The post was, I'm not a doctor, but
Zoom is about to flatline. If you look at their stock chart, they're like very close to $1.
yeah, I put a
They're
post on there. I
They're
said,
90.35% down in the past 6 months.
On
did
Zoom?
what? 93%.
90.35, almost 90.5% down in the last 6 months. So no
And
big
there's a
deal.
couple dumbass manufacturers modeling that model.
Yes.
I think it's because Zoom's been doing an
Bobbie's talking, but her lips are moving. But
no sound, Bobbie.
No sound.
Bobbie's caught the Jennifer disease here.
Right.
Oh
Right.
my gosh!
So yeah, the post already had 7,200 impressions, and there's a bunch of comments. But it's really surprising to see how many people are out of touch with the basic arithmetics. Not even mathematics.
So and I put a post on there that I heard a bunch of kids were pooling their lunch money to do a hostile takeover.
Yeah, that was really funny.
We should put some of those kids in the United States Congress so that our data and our tech could be regulated at a more intelligent level. That'd be interesting.
One thing I'd like, since we don't have a subject for today's Dawg Pound, I'd like our viewers to post some questions that we could launch to the group on the sidebar. So if you're watching the video right now, just launch a question. We'll address it, because we honestly do not have a subject for today's show. We're going to go with industry trends.
We're wild west today, like Texas.
But Jim, I want to say one thing, that I didn't get a chance to say last time when we were talking about Ford, right? And this is what I want to say, that history judges the CEOs, right? And there are good and bad examples. So, for example, Ford has Alan Mulally as an awesome example of a capable CEO who can, really make the magic happen in one of the toughest environments. And I think so does Chrysler with Lee Iacocca, right?
Mm-hmm.
decades ago. And then you have that example, right? You have this guy, Rick Wagner, right, from GM, right? That was
Rick Wagner was one of the most incompetent CEOs that GM ever had. How do you lose $90 billion in a decade?
Correct. So now,
and this guy's still getting work.
I know. So James Farley now, right? He's like at the crossroads. He can either follow Alan Mulally or he can follow Rick Wagner, right? And the history will judge, his actions. And listen, from where I'm sitting, I think everything he's doing is the wrong move. Everything. Because you can't go direct. And if you go direct, they're going to use that to break the franchise laws for the internal combustion engine as well. And then everybody will get hurt.
Well, I read this week that
to say it last week.
I read this week that Farley has announced to the public it's going to be 100% online, 100% one price, which I'm not sure I agree with that or not. I know you're a big advocate of one price, and I'm trying to be an advocate of one price, but I can't quite go there.
A couple of things, Max. I really liked your LinkedIn posts, and I tend to like most of your posts because they're fun, and even if I disagree, I like sparks. So I just think it's super great. But one of the things I think that, I talk a lot about facts, not feelings, right? That we need to look at data to make decisions. But I also say we need to go with the majority of things, not the minority of things. And I feel like what's really happening now is a lot of decisions are being made based on what happened during the pandemic. And that is not normal. What happened during the pandemic is not normal. And so the decisions that are happening to say, let's copy the Zooms of the world, let's copy the Carvanas of the world, let's go direct to consumer. Some of those things that people are pushing that narrative is based upon what we had to do because our backs were against the wall, not necessarily what customers want to do now that we're coming out the other side. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these crashes. Customers they may hate us, but they also love us. And I think that's something we have to remember. I made a comment in last week's about, I brought up my Apple phone and I said, hey, I bought something totally different than what I intended to buy when I went in. But I didn't get the opportunity to share why I go to the Apple store and the Verizon store. I initially go online. I research all the new phones, what phone I might want, whether I'm going to upgrade my watch, what the deals are, what are the new subscription programs, what my trade-in might be worth. But ultimately, I walk into the store. And I walk into the store for multiple reasons. One, to make sure that all that is legit, but then they take it from there. And they do little things like transfer all my data over, so I don't have to mess with trying to figure that out on my own. They put a screen protector on, which I got to tell you, I don't know if I could do that no matter how long I try. Like I would literally buy 50 of them.
You can't get the bubbles out.
I can't do it. So, and then I don't want to deal with having to figure out sending my phone back and the mailing and doing all these things. So ultimately, I still like to make the trip to the store because of the customer service they provide and handling all of those things that I'm not an expert in doing. They put screen protectors on all day. Why would I not let them do it? So I think when we talk about modeling ourselves after these companies, we have to consider that car buying is such a big purchase. It's okay to have these customer service tools and communicate with our customers virtually. But ultimately, I still think people like to have the customer service aspect of it, which is bringing the expert in and helping them
April, and customers don't know what they want.
Well, that's true too. But I'm saying even if they do, they need help with pairing their phone. They need help with setting their stations on their radio. They need help with all of these delivery things that make a big difference in whether you utilize all of the technology in your car or you don't. I don't know many people that go and pull out their owner's manual and read it to help figure out how they're going to now operate a new vehicle. So, I think that we have to understand that it is more than just can I buy a car online and what happens during the process. They may not like the length. They may not like getting beat up in finance. They may not like these things, but ultimately they will put up with it because what we provide for all the other stuff. So if we can just make the pain points better, continue to grow and make them better, we'll all end up better.
Well, Matthew Hamilton had a diatribe
Yeah.
he wrote on the side. Facts, not feelings. Where do we find all this data you're talking about? Outside of our own dealer or dealer group, we say most customers want to negotiate. We say one price won't work, but where do we find the data on most customers?
So most customers has to be most customers for your individual store. And that's the problem. So many of these narratives that are pushed based on somebody who's saying, I did a survey, right? And not to bus roll Google or Cox or any of them, but they all have their surveys based on the data pool that they went after, right? So you have to create your own data pool based on your own dealership. And I have dealerships that are next to each other that I would do things completely different in because of their customer base and what their customers' wants and needs are. So the data has to be your own. You have to look at your own data. You have to make decisions on what's best for your store, what you're capable of doing, what your employees are capable of doing today, and then continue to grow and move forward that way.
Bobbie, how many dealerships are you in?
I am what I call elbows deep in 7. So there are 7 stores that I'm super hyper focused in. We have a total of 13, but there are 7 that I'm very.
Bobbie, how many are you in?
I'm in the ground running in the last 3.5 months in over 20 stores. And that's
Okay, yeah, I have been physically on the ground in 1,500 stores.
Yeah. Like that's
this is all experiential observation. That's how you get the data. You feel the data.
Well,
and then you back it up. You back it up with your own customers and what your customers are doing, and then what you're actually seeing between your Google Analytics, your conversational commerce, your employees. You look at what people are texting, what they're emailing you, what your reviews look like. I mean, there's a million different ways. What your surveys come back as. All of those things are things you have to look at.
We instinctively know most customers want to negotiate.
Well, the other
no matter how one price you are. I was doing a Saturn 20 group, and I was very critical of Saturn. And of course, Saturn crashed hard. I was real critical of Saturn. And when I got the General Motors representative in there, and I said, "You don't negotiate." I said, "Well, what do you?" And he finally had to admit, here's the word they used in Saturn: we wiggle on the trade.
Bingo.
We wiggle on the trade.
That's exactly
that's negotiating.
I think it's important to note, though, like Matt had a really good point here. How do you know that? And that's a great question because there's so much data out there. We're using everything from prior to the conversation with a customer, Google Analytics, our CRM information, what's the source of an opportunity that's coming in, is the journey that they're on, what did they take? Some of the tech that's available is crazy. In addition, joining dealer advisory boards for products that are pulling that data and studying it, having those conversations, and it's different in each market. To be clear though, I am a fan of online purchasing, obviously, right? All the way through. But I also think that it's up to the customer. And I think if we made it more convenient for customers and we were more transparent, we wouldn't have those issues. The fear of closing a deal online and not being able to push the paper over exists in our head. It's not a problem for the customer. We learned how to use control tactics like that long ago, and it's a struggle to adopt them in this newer age and being able to. I don't have any interest in going into the dealership to buy a vehicle. I bought my house online. I'm not the typical consumer that way, but I also don't think that everybody should be.
And that's another problem we have, Bobbie, is most dealers, don't forget, we are not the average consumer. I have people tell me, well, I wouldn't buy a car that way. You're right. And you are not our normal consumer. You wouldn't buy a car that way. But I have made a career of doing what most of the people do most of the time. And the manufacturers are concentrating on what some of the people will do some of the time. Does that make sense, April?
Right.
Oh, 100%. But here's the thing that I'm gonna actually agree with Bobbie on something here, though.
No.
We don't always agree.
Don't do it.
Ultimately,
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm greedy. I want all the car deals. I want the Bobbie who's the customer. I want the April who's the customer. I want the Max customer. I want the Jim.
Of course we
I want
do.
all of that. I want all of them. But to your point, Jim, you can't take the 90% over here and then put all your eggs in the 10% basket and say,
And
well,
set your whole corporate structure aimed at the Tesla buyer.
Right. So you
But
have
listen,
to be able to do both and then grow.
Max is trying to get in here.
I gotta say, women are so much smarter than men, right?
Thank God somebody's at it.
It's ridiculous because I don't agree with anything that's being said, right? Anything. only because I just don't get it, right? I don't think you need any data from anybody, right? You need to have a conviction and belief. And if you believe that your customers will buy at one price, then go with one price. If you don't believe that your customers are going to buy at one price, stay with negotiations. It's entirely up to you. Because I guarantee you that order groups that are currently one price, right? And it's one price, whether it's in the showroom or online, they just have conviction. They have zero data saying that their customers wanted it that way for many years, and finally they're satisfying their customers.
Okay, but I think it's
And they're still wiggling on the trade.
Right.
If you're going to sell at one price, then be one price. If you're not going to sell at one price, don't be one price. But do what you say and say what you do and inspect what you expect and follow through and be consistent and stick to it. But I'll tell you,
Bobbie, how many cliches can you jam pack in one sentence?
Man, Jennifer got me an idioms book, so.
I mean, that was a whole lot of cliches in one.
What I really wish would happen for dealers, is that bad vendor partners would stop coming in and telling them bullshit that's not real and throwing out numbers that don't matter and not being a true partner, because isn't that where a lot of this comes from? The dealer doesn't have access to the amount of data to make an educated decision on something like that across markets, which I would imagine is why Matthew was saying that. But vendors have a ton of data, and it's only sharing what can be shared. Join a dealer advisory board, look at your KPIs in your store. The data does matter. Making a decision off gut is stupid when we live in an age where algorithms rule the world. There's an AI that they just thought was transient. Like, maybe it's time that we pay attention to those things.
a little and not so much.
Right.
I'm not. AI, like full online buying, is moving in that direction, and it is a great. I call it the trampoline, right? AI is a great little trampoline out there helping boost all these little areas, but they still need to give people the ability to trump the AI. And right now, that's a massive problem kind of in so many areas. I mean, I can start going off now on Google business profile pages now, and how AI is making decisions that are not very bright, that quite frankly, a 5-year-old would do a better job than their AI is.
It'd be great if people would get involved, right? And I'm not even saying use AI.
Is AI real?
Yes. Not really in automotive. It's a buzzword because it's not real AI. It's chatbots and stuff, but that's not true. I shouldn't have said that. There is some, but the fact of the matter is, like, you shouldn't have to use AI. We have all the tools at our disposal to give the customer exactly what they're asking for in a way that we can actually control, where we can have a healthy growth, be a chosen store. All of the tools already exist, guys. They're already there. So to me, it just seems silly not to utilize.
AI has been around for a long time. I mean, Conversica has been around since it was, what was it before? It was something else. So.
Yeah, machine and behavioral learning. But we have all the information. It's as simple as, like, let's not even go crazy. Let's just say for 1 minute, let me just put something in your head for a second. Let's say you're in a store and you're in your CRM, okay? Not going on a CRM team. And you see that a customer comes in as a trade pending buyer. I'm a fan of trade pending. I like that product. I don't usually say that. So you're a fan of that, right? Now I know that when I bring that customer into the store, that they're a trade buyer, and that I don't need to negotiate necessarily the price of the car to get to the payment point. I need to start with the trade, because that is where the focus is going to be. But take it a step further and say that you were a Gubagoo provider, that you have Gubagoo as chat, and you can see the last 5, 6, 7, 19 pages that they visited. And now you have the power of also looking in the CRM and going, what messages are being opened and how? Where's the communication coming from? We are given by the customer.
You see, Bobbie, nobody is a trade buyer.
Oh my goodness. Well,
nobody is a trade. No. See, that's where you are mistaken.
You know it.
No, if they're financing with us, regardless of whether they have a trade, they're a payment buyer.
But
Most
Okay.
99%
Frank got
of
his
them are
own
payment
box on the
buyers.
Foursquare for a reason.
They're
And
all
it's
payment
your
buyers.
job,
Understand?
your-
No, you're
Somebody
wrong.
said
You
a
are
payment
so
buyer
wrong.
is
You
behaviorally
are
driven.
so
Okay.
wrong.
You're
That's the
right.
problem. Oh, they're a trade buyer because they were looking at the trade. Why were they trying to get a better price on the trade? Because they wanted a lower payment.
Right.
No, because that was their hot button. It was their
So
hot
they're
button.
not a trade buyer. They are a payment
So
buyer.
let's go to the next scenario. The salesperson's at the desk, right? They're up there. We're going to be between $500 and $600. We're not going to crazy this and be perfect, okay? We need to be between $500 and $600. We're going we're going way out there. If the sales manager knows that the customer is a trade focused buyer, that is the lean for them, that is where they're at in the journey, they can utilize the trade to get near or toward that payment rather than the top line. Because then what happens? We take it off the price, we go back to the desk, and the customer goes, well, wait, what about my trade?
Yep, exactly.
Why, when we have all of the data that we have, wouldn't you use intelligent, suggestive theory to be able to have that conversation? You have everything.
Yes.
Everything. Thanks, Elise.
But
You
it's
have everything.
overcomplicated, right? Because I'm sorry, but it really is just the new age Foursquare. Like Foursquare never went away. It's just
No, just
utilized
transformed.
differently, right? We do the exact same tactics, whether it's online, in front of our customers, on the computer, in the showroom, on the phone. It's all the same things. You listen, you align, you find their hot points, and you make car deals. And that's what you have to just be willing to do. It's really like, stop overcomplicating it, the world.
So the consumer says, so the dealer says, okay, Mr. Customer, I will give you $19,000 more than you ask for your trade. Is $880 a month okay? Oh no, I'm not paying $880 a month, but I'm giving you more than for your trade. Okay, what if I can?
You're right. The home run is in knowing the payment. But first base and then getting to second, sliding in, you have everything to do it. There's already everything there, and we overcomplicate it because people are like, Bobbie, that sounds crazy. That sounds hard. We are connectors naturally. We are good at what we do because we have the ability to connect with people.
Yeah, but you see, Bobbie, if any of it was true,
information on a person before you started the conversation.
You see, Bobbie, if any of what you were saying was true or accurate, we wouldn't need finance departments.
Yes, we would.
Right? Because the salespeople will do everything.
No.
Right? What happens, right? When the salesperson makes a deal at $500 a month, goes to the F&I and tells the finance manager, this customer is not going $1 over 500. Then 22 minutes later, that customer comes out of the box with a $790 payment.
I don't disagree.
Smiling from ear to ear.
I'm a fan of finance departments.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of finance departments because I'll tell you what.
Jennifer's saying Max doesn't know what he's talking about. Jennifer's gone, but not forgotten. She's on the sidelines, egging us on.
Right.
I mean,
too many, unfortunately. Too many.
Forget how easy
you got on her girl there, but what are you thinking about?
Right.
We forget how easy it actually is to do something the right way and utilize the information we have before. We live in a world where people shop for people online by swiping on photos, where we don't buy our own groceries, where we order something on Amazon that comes the next day. I binge watched 2 shows yesterday without even having to wait till the next week. But then we want to slow everybody down. It's the exact same thing as it used to be. It just feels and looks different. The data that we have at our hands for no extra charge blows my mind. Do you know that there is AI, we'll call it AI out there, that integrates into a CRM that will tell me if April is the buyer that is trying to come to me, what she's done in the past, but also that she's a home buyer. She's in the market for a home, that she's been being tracked for it. I know that if I'm doing a video walk around, I'll tell you where I'm parking that car, in front of a for sale sign in front of a house, because I'll put the work into selling somebody something and it took 20 minutes. And now I've created a lifestyle because I had 2 pieces of information that I took the time to just read. There's no extra cost involved in what we already know. We just have to slow down. And if we did that, Tesla and Carvana and all these places wouldn't even have an opportunity to get into our backyard. We got to stop with the one night stands with our customers and start wiping people up. Take the time to go on a real date, do the research, have the conversation, and then sell the vehicle. Because you know what? If we did that, we could ask for referrals the way we used to, and we'd be successful at it.
I think though, Bobbie, that has to come full circle back to employee retention, because if your employees don't care about the next sale, because they don't plan to be there, and we still have this massive revolving door, no matter how much management thinks that and agrees with that and aligns with that, if the sales reps don't, it won't happen and it'll never get there. So
Agreed.
ultimately that goes into a whole nother.
Well, I wrote an article in Digital Dealer magazine this month, why they left you, why employees aren't sticking in dealerships. I wrote I thought it was one of the more magnificent articles I've written. And the readership didn't really go to that article. I mean, management's not paying attention to that.
Well, and look, we're living in a
What's the
world
number one reason dealers
right now
people
make
leave a
$20
dealership?
an hour. People are struggling to hire people right now, and they're struggling to keep them.
Why do people leave a dealership?
Typically because of the people they're working under or for, or lack of knowledge.
So
lack of
people don't
onboarding.
quit dealerships, they quit people?
They quit people.
Well, so I think that's mostly the case, but I think we're about to hit something, and I'm gonna start with Clinton, who kind of opened us up on Facebook, asking ways that we're gonna make it through the next step of the economy's ups and mostly downs. And he's not wrong about the mostly downs, and employee retention should be everyone's number one focus right now over anything else. Is how we're going to keep the people that we've worked so hard to get and help together move through those uncharted territories. And right now, we are about to repeat history is exactly what we're going to do. And do I think it's going to be as bad as 2008? I don't, but I do think we're going to see employees move in the way we did in 2008. I absolutely do, because as soon as they get back to having to actually sell a customer, and fight for growth and do all of those things, we're going to see them just start hopping in the grass is greener, the grass is greener, the grass is greener. And the worst part about it, we're actually going to lose a lot of employees completely out of automotive. They're going to leave automotive completely. And so that's something that right now I'm super passionate about, is that we need to start laying.
But I asked a question and nobody answered it. Why do people leave dealerships? Now this is 48 years of experience talking here. Why do
I'm interested in what your number one answer is. I mean, in my top three are easily like what Jennifer and Moody said: pay, bad management, I think lack of skill, and a lot of times fear.
Nobody is
schedule.
The number one reason people leave dealerships is spouse pressure.
Yeah, schedule.
Schedule. Yeah. The schedule is the number one reason people will leave a dealership making more money to get a warehouse job that pays less money and weekends and evenings off.
Yep.
When I was in management and when I was consulting some of the biggest stores in the country, one thing I convinced dealers to do is 3 shifts. Yeah. 1 shift off 100% of the time the dealership is open, including weekends and evenings. 1 shift is off 1 weekend a month. And when we lightened up their schedule, we took about 10 hours a week off of their 50-hour schedules. And we started seeing retention. Money is the number 2 reason. The last 3 jobs I had in management, I left because of pay plan. Because somebody changed my pay plan because I overperformed. Performers are penalized for breaking the pay plan. Mm-hmm. Every time I outperformed the pay plan. The last job I had in the car business, the general manager said, "Well, you made more money than I did." I said, "Well, okay, I'll switch jobs with you and still make more than you will."
The crazy part is a lot of that stuff, when it's decided inside of a dealership, like in a true leadership position, you build, you recruit, you retain, you build, you cultivate a team, you write a pay plan that is motivating based on the person and also works for keeping your comp in line. And then you stick to it. And in a lot of places, the leaders or the managers don't have the ability or are empowered to do all that stuff, not to always defend, but we've got some really great.
I think managers today are too fuzzy. And I'll tell you what, I get rid of all of the HR departments. I mean, HR screws up more employees because they fart around too long getting an employee processed, and the people bail out and don't take the job because HR is farting around for 2 weeks and didn't get around to passing the employee. I mean, a lot of good employees don't get the job because AR is farting around too long. Dealers, pay attention. Anyway.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I fought that really hard because, salespeople, they don't wait to start a job. So if you hire them and you can't put them to work immediately, they're going to keep shopping until somebody can put them to work immediately. That is absolutely true.
Or you start them and then they just sit at a desk all day while we run back and forth and do stuff because we're not prepared to onboard somebody appropriately. And then a month later we go, why are they just messing around all day? Well, I don't know, because that's what you taught them to do for the whole first week.
Bingo, 100%. So that is.
I was as tough a manager as you could ever see. I was a super tough. My nickname was Darth Vader. The stores I had in the hood, they just called me Vader. They shortened it up. I'm gonna tell you what. But those people would follow me anywhere because being a tough leader, you got to be an inspirational leader. You've got to be an effectual leader. And most of our managers today are too damn warm and fuzzy. They're not your friends. They work for you. You don't hang with them at the bar at night.
You have to love your people enough to hold them accountable. It needs to matter if they can't put groceries on the table. It needs to matter.
Who said I didn't love them?
Practice. No, I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying in general, I think accountability is something that people crave. But in order to hold somebody accountable, you have to have delivered a clear, concise expectation and a path to get there. Performance reviews have to happen. Look, we talk about this stuff every week, and I hear from people all the time like, oh, you guys say all this stuff about dealers. Like, we say it about vendors too. We're saying collaborate with us and tell us what your thoughts are on it, right? Why do you think it's happening in your own team? It's $20 an hour to work on a Chick-fil-A line right now, as Jennifer would call it, the devil's chicken.
Right, but listen, at the end of the day, car dealers, they are missing professional management class, right? We don't have professionally trained managers. If you take any manager out of enterprise, rent-a-car, they are so overqualified in comparison to any sales manager at a car dealership. Not because they're smarter, right? But because enterprise, they have a management trainee program, right? They have certain standards that they're not willing to bend for anybody, whether it's dress code, whether it's schedule, whether it's this or that. And we don't have that. Everything is spontaneous, right? The way, I guarantee you, April, in your 13 stores, each store has a different process to sell a car, to hire somebody. They have sales meetings at different times. They have different dress codes. Everything is different. Nothing is standardized.
All of it's standardized. All of those items are 100% standardized. Down to our summer dress code versus our winter dress code versus our process versus all of those things are all 100% standardized. What isn't standardized is the culture within those stores because the way the manager manages and the lack of leadership training.
Well, they don't have standards, April. April, they don't have standards. I had a rule that once there is the law, there is no room for outlaws. And what happens is there are certain salespeople that can get away with murder, and the rest of the salespeople see that, and that they don't have a standard operating procedure for everybody. That this is the rules. These are the boundaries, and you got people that'll break the boundaries. Disrespect a manager. The sign over my office used to read a bad attitude is grounds for dismissal.
Cut the cancer. I've always been a believer. I've always said you cannot reward somebody who is, a top performer just because of the numbers on the piece of paper. You don't know how many deals that customer or that bad employee attitude is actually costing all the other employees because of how they feel and how it's crapping them out.
I would fire a 20-car employee, and I hired 4 green peas that behaved.
Yep.
They sell 5 each. Yep. Before I will put up with a spoiled brat, and I'll give them a bad reference.
Yep.
It's hard to you think about, I know a lot of really great sales managers. I really do. And we have a tendency, and we should, because we're in limited time to help people, that we have to focus on things that need improvement. We don't get to focus on the wins as often enough. I've been really impressed this year by some of the sales managers that I've worked with. And they're some of my favorite people to work with because most of the time they wish that they had those skills and they don't have somebody to ask for to get them from. So the people that raise their hand and go, I want to learn.
Bobbie, I'm even agreeing with you. My God. Bobbie, I got to tell you, I have taught more managers how to be managers. The first thing I had to do was teach them how to be managers before I taught them the physical parts of their job, because they don't know how to conduct themselves like a manager. They still have a mentality that they're on the sales force. That you have stepped over to the other side of the line. You are a manager now. And a manager's mentality is something you have to instill in somebody.
I mean, we have to give somebody the tools and the resources. I'm always surprised by how many sales managers attend our shows and our webinars and things like that, because we're on here like, get your shit together, and they're still listening and then giving feedback. And I'm grateful to see so many more people that are willing to do that, because the people that are on your team that are failing, it's your fault, leaders. It's my fault if I train you and you fail. It's your manager's fault if a salesperson is failing. If you're letting somebody continue to do something that doesn't make them successful, and you're giving them the tools and resources, and you're not loving them enough to hold them accountable, you're failing them. And if you're not giving them what they need, you're failing them. So we look at things like I'm not a huge fan of 20 groups, because people go to them and they come back with these lists of nonsense and everybody lies to each other. But what I am a fan of that used to be in 20 groups and on dealer advisory boards was the ability that people had to have an intimate conversation in another room where they could be open and say, hey, what are you doing that's different? How are you recruiting and retaining right now? Because April's right, we're going to go through a nightmare when it comes to the loss of people that have started. And you know what? Maybe it'll be a favor, because we're teaching people to do things all kinds of crazy right now. Mm-hmm. Hey, Audrey.
You know Audrey? But yeah, see, being a manager is a position of dignity, authority, and respect. And
you have a responsibility as a manager.
And empathy. Don't forget,
respect.
Empathy is an important aspect of being a good leader. Like being able, if we expect our customers to be given empathy from our sales force, us as leaders need to give that same empathy to our employees who are working for us, and at least have some understanding of what makes them tick. You know, I tell my guys to treat their people, and here's the reality, Jim. What you're teaching people at a level and getting dealers to do, not everybody who's watching this has that ability. If you're not a dealer principal or a GM, you might be a great leader, but you don't have the ability to change.
See, I was a manager of managers.
Right? So
a manager of managers, April.
But you can do a lot in between, right? Like you don't have to change the rules here to change yourself here to help your team be successful. So if you're a sales manager right now, understand that if you treat your team as weird as it sounds, your children, and understand that they all have different things that motivate them and make them tick, you can work within that. So I might have one guy that's money motivated and he does something really well. Maybe I give him a spiff. But if I have another guy who's time motivated, maybe I give him the afternoon off for a good job. So you can do a lot within your own bubble, within your dealership hierarchy, without making rules that you maybe can't control. If that makes sense.
I'm going to tell you something. People are not money motivated like you think they are. Some people say, if I ask salespeople, what motivates? Oh, I'm money motivated. No, you're not. I'll tell you what, when I gave away merchandise as a sales contest, I had more participation when they were trying to win a big screen than when I ever gave them $1,500 cash. Anytime they were competing to win something, like the ring I wear on my pinky finger is a sales contest. A sales contest I won 35 years ago. If they would have given me the $2,000, whatever that ring cost, I'd long be gone. It would just be a memory. But today, every day, I won a sales contest 35 years ago. I still wear it. You know, so merchandise has
those are gifts, right? So it's like, it goes back to almost like the love language, right? We all have different things that make us tick. So you are, words of affirmation, or do you like gifts? Well, you're a guy who obviously was like, I like the gift.
But my people did too.
Yes, but you gotta take the time to figure out individually what they like, and don't just like advertising or anything else we do, whether we're talking to our customers, when it comes to your employees, you have to understand that you can't do it based on what you like. So if you are a person who likes gifts, that may not be what every single person on your team likes. Some might like that, some might like money, some might like time, some might just like the team meeting where you're like, hey, so-and-so, stand up. Great job. That means
Jennifer's on the sidebar bragging that she buys cheap televisions.
If we wanted to give, if I wanted to give the audience, like I would be interested in, I'll say what I would give as a pro tip to the audience, and I'd be interested on what the rest of you would do for them too, so that they take away something for this. But I'll tell you, get out of our industry when you're doing the research. Google is your friend. Start to read recruiting and retention articles, start to read leadership articles, and don't read them in automotive. Read them in other businesses, because in automotive, there's only so many people in automotive that are coming back with information. And I can tell you most of what I've learned, that I collaborate in, and that I know from action, it didn't come from our industry, and it shouldn't. You have to bring in new and fresh ideas. And if you're working in a store, no matter what your position is, where you're not in control of what we're talking about, control the controllable, and go in and start to research that stuff. If you're a salesperson, stop standing outside in the union meeting talking shit about your trade values and how you don't have any inventory, and start to research how to connect with consumers and what executive presence is. Listen to some TED Talks, really invest in yourself, because a balanced life is not as hard to achieve as people think when it's by design, but you have to be willing to put the work in. So start to
Let's go back to the original question. Why do people leave us? Why do people leave us? And the core problem has always been schedule, money, leadership. And that's what Bobbie's talking about. Bobbie and April are focused on leadership. I'm more focused on scheduling right now, because my experience is that is the overwhelming reason people leave dealerships.
It's a huge
more scheduling,
and it's one that's really difficult for dealerships to change. I think the reason we don't talk a lot about it is because people are more apt to believe that customers will buy a car completely online than to actually look in the mirror and say, this industry needs some drastic changes when it comes to scheduling, that people realistically,
and we need different skill sets of salespeople.
Yeah.
I think I have a different answer here. You know what? They leave because there's a disconnect between the dealership culture and the culture that they expected. So, for example, Jim keeps talking about scheduling, right? And the spouse pressure. You know, guys, some breaking news: on Wall Street, hours are much more grueling than in a car dealership, right? But they manage their expectations. You know how they do it? When you walk into Goldman Sachs, you know what it says there? It says, if you work hard, you will not know your kids, but you will know your grandkids. Right? And they manage that expectation from day one, once they got you out of Harvard Business School, right? So now, if you want to build a high-performing culture, you got to hire people that are motivated by money, whether it's cash, whether it's TV, but if you want to build a Google culture, you got to get somebody who's motivated by a free afternoon, right? But if you put them together in one room, one will destroy the other. Right? And most likely it's the lazy one motivated by the free afternoon that's going to corrupt the money-hungry salesperson. So you, as the dealer principal, need to decide what kind of culture you are looking for. If you're looking for high-performing assassins, forget the free afternoons. If you're looking for Google BS, let's give them afternoons.
Google BS, absolutely.
Let's give them. Right.
But here's a thought. Why? If I want to have a happy home life and I want to have a happy work life, and I just went through a pandemic which showed that we have a great, recession of employment, the great resignation of employment. Why, when somebody can put the work in and wants to do it, why do they have to work 50 hours? Why do we care? Why do you have to work? Why is it that you have to make a pay plan that pays $200,000 and works 6 days a week and gets one freaking Saturday off, instead of a pay plan that's $60,000?
Let me explain slowly something. Let me have the floor for a moment here. I don't want to turn everybody's microphone off, so let me just have the floor for a second. When we've shortened the work schedules, one weekend a month off from Friday at noon until Monday at noon. You're not even allowed to be in the dealership if you want to. We had people try to come in on their weekend off, and we wouldn't let them come in. Why have a deal? No, you have a split. We made people. You're not going to double cross your kids. You're not going to double cross your wife or your significant. You're not going to come into work anyway. We gave you that weekend off so you could plan family events. We gave you an evening off so you could be with your neighbors in the Boy Scout troop or whatever the hell else you do. So we gave you the family time, and we had more salespeople than we needed. We had 2 teams would have handled it, but we had 3 teams. And managers got the same time off that the employees got. So one team off every hour the dealership is open. There's one team not present. So nobody believes you flooded the floor. Nobody has a concept that you flooded the floor because there's one team 100% of the time not visible, except the last weekend of the month, all hands on deck. Everybody's there.
I would challenge it to say we should do a show and invite on some of the dealers that are doing it this way. I can tell you, Ashley Church runs a team that has an extremely low turn rate, less than 2%, and almost the entire sales team and most of service is Gen Z and millennial. She has a fair and balanced work schedule with a great pay plan. Everybody sells vehicles. The store does very, very well. Erica Wells and Ryan Dare run those sales teams. It didn't start as an easy transition, but their culture is impeccable and their turn rate is low and they're doing it right. And they're not the only ones, but why does it matter so much to everybody? Because I fight this battle in dealerships all the time where they're like, well, but Bobbie, why can't I find a good person? Why do you want everybody to be in debt and miserable? Okay. There's a great resignation. You can't even recruit people. Why does it have to work that way? Why do you care if they're a 10 car a month person who works 30 hours a week? Because I'll tell you what, when you don't enforce that people give their whole life, they will stay. They will put the work in because it feels like a choice instead of an expectation. And people are motivated by money rather than time. Let them work the 60 hours a week if they want to. Let them.
Okay.
Different options.
I'm going to answer why. I'm going to answer why though, Bobbie, because I talk to my general managers about that exact thing all the time. I'll tell you the number one reason why, because you have to learn to treat people the way you wish you were treated and not the way you were. If you were beaten and you were forced to work 70, 80 hours a week, and then you finally rise to that of a GM or a manager, your expectation is now that everyone else below me is supposed to do what I had to do to get to where I got to. And that's just not necessarily the case, but that is what happens in a lot of cases. And I think it was, Ariel or somebody posted, we treat people as if they're disposable things. And that's true. There are still some cultures in some stores, and I've seen it, where they literally do these massive hirings with zero intent of any of them sticking, and they don't even care. They're
five, we're going to keep two, and we're going to lose one.
Spit them out, and they still exist. They do still exist. Thankfully, that is not my group. It took me a long time to find a group to work with, but that is a problem out there. So now you've got salespeople that become managers who say, this is how I learned to be a manager, is blocking how I was treated.
But it's such a shame to me because, look, as I say this, I work 100 hours a week, but nobody makes me do it. It's my choice. And when I worked in the dealerships, I had no problem staying till 10 p.m. Usually it was my decision, but it would have been nice to once in a while be able to accomplish something outside of that other than ruining my marriage, to say, on a Tuesday, I don't want to ask if I can run to the post office. I want to be able to do this. And I'm not saying that's for everybody. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have assassins and that you shouldn't have teams like that. What I'm saying is if you really want to have a high performance culture, you have to have a persona that you're looking for. You have to be consistent in it, and it has to be what you stick to. It can be either one, just like BDC can be either one, but it has to be consistent and expectations have to be followed. We just went through a pandemic where people were home all the time in remote work. And I know you guys laugh when I say this, but look, there's a great resignation. Unemployment is not at its all-time low. People are taking jobs more than ever that are less money for more time with their family because they're prioritizing stuff. And so why not? It's the same thing with selling cars online. Why not just be where people want to be? Why not just give it an option? If you're not the kind of leader who can handle that, I'm not saying you should do it, but why not have 2 different pay plan options and 2 different time commitment options? And why does person A care what person B is doing if everybody has the same choice? And say at the 6-month performance review, you have an opportunity to do a flip right there.
Besides that doesn't work, but it sounds good.
It does work. I'm telling you, I work with a lot of clients that do it and it does work.
So guys, you can all agree, right, that at some point it's going to hit the fan, right? And the profits are going to go down to pre-pandemic levels and the inventory at some point is going to get fixed. And guess what? It's the high-performing culture, money-driven culture that will make it. and the Google Fantasyland will go bankrupt. Right?
It's
With
not-
free afternoons and free weekends and 28-hour work weeks. All of these guys are going to be gone, together with the managers that instituted this
It's
insanity.
not, because all the old dogs are fucking
The
dying,
principals that approved it.
freaking dying off.
And it's the high performers that will make the magic happen when everything goes back to pre-pandemic levels.
The actual definition of a high performance culture is an organizational culture built on a set of universally accepted behaviors and norms that are encouraged by leaders and facilitated by optimal tools and
Thank you,
processes.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, actually Google. Like that.
Yep, that comes from Google, all right.
It's not-
I heard
it's not what
Google a
you-
digital dealer with a bunch of misinformation too.
Right.
Look, I make a lot of money, just like a lot of you do. I make a lot of money, but money is not what motivates me. I am motivated when other people win. So if you pay me the same amount of money to help somebody else, I will work way harder. I know this is the truth about myself. And again, I'm not always an advocate for just, oh, this is how I do it, everybody do it this way. I'm an advocate for, could we have an open mind? Not, Max, you're money motivated too. So to you, it seems like that would be the only way to create a high performance culture, but it's not. It's
Well,
really not.
And Bobbie, you're right, because we talk to even like our GMs. I have some of my GMs that would like to have a better work-life balance. They have young kids, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And they are considering saying, I'll take a different pay plan to have better time. And other GMs saying, well, no, don't touch my pay plan. I have no problem working. I want to work. So I do think that having options is a good considerating thing to do going forward to make sure that you optimize both sides in both ways. But you have to have a good balance. So here's what I mean by that. If you have a general manager or another sales manager that is time motivated, you need to not have everyone be time motivated. It's
Right.
like a band, right? You don't want to have all lead singers. You don't want to have all drummers. You can actually have all of these different people and they work really well together, because if I don't care that you're making more money than me, and you don't care that I get more time off, then we actually work well together as a good balance. So I think you can have a really good balance within teams as long as you put the ego aside and let people really say, here's what matters to me personally.
No, on any team you build, I build teams like sporting teams. That's my philosophy on it. I'm looking for people with different stats. I'm looking for people that have different skill sets and optimize off of each other. And my way isn't the only right way. I don't mean it that way, but it is important and imperative to be open to it if we're going to build good teams right now.
Yep.
I promise you, because I'm out on the front line using recruiting and retention. I'm watching dealers not be able to hire people right now. Who tried to, I mean, April, I'm sure you know this too, but Max, I'm sure you do too. Have you tried to hire somebody recently?
No, the
Like a
struggle
real
it's so hard. And then
You can't get them through HR.
Like Max would say, adapt or die. Adapt or die, Max. It's time.
That's right.
That's right.
But I
Hire
do
your HR, you can hire all the people you need.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I think that this foundation is the best preventative measure we can possibly take to help buffer us from what we all know is going to happen, is really taking a look at some of these foundational things in employee retention right now, because the employees you have today, if you can groom them right, they will carry you through and you'll be 15 steps ahead of everybody else on the other side. But you got to keep them busy right now. You can't let them sit in the corners and crap each other out when there's one car on the lot. You got to actually pull them together and have them doing constructive things to help build them, build their career, build their toolbox, all of those things. That's what needs to be happening right now. And unfortunately, what we're letting them do is sit out on the lot staring at one car and crap each other out.
Right. But I also want to
April,
go
one
back
thing
to-
I will say, I was joking about it, but I really wasn't joking about it. If I could hire the people I really wanted to hire, that would be the super performers in the dealership, they wouldn't make it through HR. The kind of people I would hire would not make it through HR.
Depending on the state.
but listen, let me say one thing. Again, I just want to say it all comes down to the dealership's culture, right? And there's a comment here that, why would we want Goldman Sachs to be the moral example for our industry, right? And the answer is very simple. Unlike car dealers, Goldman Sachs has zero, I want to say it again, zero problems hiring people, okay? Zero. If they raise their hand and they say, we need to hire 100 analysts, people will crawl on their knees and sleep outside of their headquarters just to get an interview.
It's like the guys who buy a bright yellow car when they turn 45.
Because of their culture, not because of anything else.
There are a couple managers out there that I know in the industry, and I'm not going to name who they are. We all know who they are, that people are fighting to go to work for their dealerships. If I ran a dealership today, I promise you, people would travel from many states around to work for me. Not because I'm a difficult manager to work for. Don't get that wrong. I'm not warm and fuzzy in any way. I don't know if you noticed that, but people will travel to a leader who is inspirational and causes them to be a success. The problem today is people are not career minded. They're not success minded. They're not looking at the car business as a career. They're more interested in their damn side hustle, their multi-level bullshit, I said it, Bobbie. But
I'm proud of you.
But anyway, the multi-level side hustles that are more important in their job, I mean, they're not making a career out of it. Mm-hmm. And they're not success motivated. I dreamed of the day I could be a manager. I worked to be a manager. And when I became a manager, dignity, authority, and respect, I will not be disrespected. And when I became a manager of managers, I would not allow my managers to be disrespected. You are a salesperson. We accepted the challenge. Excuse me. It's a salesperson is an honorable profession, and I'm glad you're in that profession, but you will not disrespect us that took the challenge. That's where I come from.
Well, and I'm going to take something from this, and I want to research Goldman Sachs and see, why does somebody want to work there like that? What is it about it? Is there a solid path, as Jennifer was just saying? Is there a solid onboarding, or is there a real education there? Like, why it looks like the average salary is between $40,000 and $107 for an analyst. I want to know why. And I'm not educated enough in that to know the answer. So I'm going to go do my research on it. But keeping that in mind, I would encourage everyone, including all of us, to keep in mind that there are generational and cultural.
Look what Ariel said.
We're dealing with.
See, that's what
I'm not educated.
I was going to ask that exact question. What's the turnover? Is it, are they doing what us dealers used to do back in the day? Let me show you.
They either quit or go to jail.
The highest W-2 I could find, because then, you would hire.
They either quit or go to jail.
I mean, we as an industry are still trying to figure out how to hire, recruit, and retain millennials. I'm a millennial. We're past it. It's Gen Z now. There's a cultural variable that you can fight, or you can adapt to die and get used to it. But you're going to have to adapt to it if you want to have a real crew in the next 10 years. Otherwise, all the manufacturers are going to be selling their stuff online. It's not going to matter. And we're giving them all.
Most millennials still live in mom's basement playing
That
Xbox
is
on the
couch. It's not even true.
Smoking pot, playing Xbox on the mom's couch in the basement.
I mean, everybody smokes pot, but
that's the millennials. Oh, what a great show this has been. I didn't know where we were going to go with this show. Just everybody was on vacation. Couldn't round up the guests. We did a better show than we've done in a long time. I enjoyed this. Hey, April, anything you want to finish up the show with?
No, I just challenge everybody to take the opportunity we all have right now. We all have time that we don't normally have to actually work with our teams and build a better, stronger foundation to prepare for what we know is coming. And that's up to all of us individuals to make that happen.
And read my article in Digital Dealer Magazine, this month's issue, Digital Dealer Magazine, Why Are They Leaving? About how to secure turnover and improve retention. Max, anything you want to say, contrarian you?
Listen, all I want to say is that all these millennials and Gen Z become adults. They get married. They move to suburbs.
They move to the suburbs, barbecue on the weekends. Yeah.
And they start working.
I'm a millennial.
They all get married. they get
Thanks,
divorced.
Bobbie,
They
for
whine
making me
about
feel old.
it.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, they
mean-
got divorced. They got remarried. They got
Right,
kids.
right.
They're paying
They
child
can't
support.
use Uber anymore. They need a minivan. They become like us. Trust me.
Yeah, they're all us. They turned into us. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Bobbie, you got 30 seconds. What you got?
I just want to tell everybody thank you for joining us today. I know that everybody's in the middle of June and going through a bunch of stuff, and everybody's light on vacations and ending school and stuff, and we appreciate you sharing your time with us. The feedback is good. We go back and read these things. We can't see them all while we're on the show, but we do go back and look at them, and they're good conversation starters. If you guys have ideas for our next show, you should share them in the comments.
Oh yes, and any ideas for the next show? We're still going to talk about Ford and some of the manufacturers, and don't sign up for Car Bravo. Don't do it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Wave goodbye to the audience.